Okay, and moving on to our next speaker, we have a guest from Ghostery, Philip Klasen, and Philip's had a deep experience, actually over 15 years working as a software engineer in various industries such as high-frequency trading and e-commerce systems. And currently, Philip serves in the function of Director of Data Engineering at Ghostery, where he focuses on developing Ghostery's browser extension and data transparency initiatives such as whotracks.me. And in his presentation, Ghostery Tracker Database, he will basically cover how the Tracker Database project works, how it can be used in other projects, and how to contribute back to Ghostery's open-sourced Tracker Database. Welcome, Philip.
Okay. Hello. So this is an introductory talk about TrackerDB. It stands for Ghostery Tracker Database, but it's not limited to trackers. This is one thing to keep in mind. It's a project that we started 2023, but it's also mature now so that we can present it here to the audience. But before we jump in, let's take one step back. So if we go back, 30 years, in the beginning of the internet, so it was quite simple. So when you loaded a web page, it was a simple single request. So you made one request to a server, got back HTML, and this was it. But now, 30 years later, it's a more complicated story. So most websites are very complex, and it's not uncommon to see hundreds of requests, and they are also going to a variety of actors. So it's not longer limited to the site that you open, but to a lot of third parties. And now the question is, so what is going on? So what are these requests doing? So let's go in. So by the way, so for this slide, so I will describe what you see, because something might not be so easy to see. So this is, I took here as an example, just the Guardian page. And now, so to understand what's going on here, so we would normally have to look now at the network requests, but I'm skipping this step now and taking a shortcut and using here Ghostery. So this is what you see. In this view, you see here that there are 38 activities being shown. So there is, okay, it's now also for me a bit hard to see, but I think it was 29 or so. Advertising ones, and also then other ones like site analytics, etc. But let's go a bit. This is for a detailed view. It's a bit easier. So this is the list when I said 29 advertising. So this is here is already a part of it. I will not go through all of the list, but some you would expect also to see, like Google, Amazon are showing up. The numbers there is, by the way, this is the number of requests. So you see some even have over 1,000 requests. If you would keep the site loading, this number would also go up. This is also just, it's not even the full one. So this would be the full activity that happened here on this page. You see also, so here most would be advertising. You see also different categories like site analytics. We have also some that are not tracking, like concept management, hosting, or utility. So utility would be something that is important for the essential functionality of the page. But so if we now try to understand a bit more, I took here as the first example which makes a lot of requests, but I was not sure what this is. For example, here, integrated ad science. So that we see what is this now. So if we click on it, so there's so it's not important now to understand all what you see here, but so what it has. So it has a description of the company. You would also see here the network requests. So this is the one that I said in the beginning that we skipped over and simplified. And there's also information about the company and the country in which it operates, and some additional information like the website or contact information, how you can reach it. So for GDPR purposes, for example. So, but now is the question, so how did Ghostery know that, all that information? So if we go so step by step, what did it have to do? So the first step was that it had to map the network request to these services that are listed. The other thing was it had to know who operates the services, so the companies behind that. And it also had to do this classification, so to understand, is this advertising or is this content managing? And this is a very important part here. This is not so much an engineering problem. So it's a data problem. So someone has to do this groundwork of doing this mapping and preparing this metadata. And this is exactly what this TrackerDB project is about. So providing this metadata. So to give you a bit of, so this is, we open sourced the tool 2023. It used to be a proprietary database within Ghostery, but this is now available. And so the basic structure is, and this maps to the previous 3 steps that I said. So the first thing is to mapping this network request to the services. This is what we call internally as patterns in TrackerDB. The second thing is to describe the meta information for the company behind it. So this is the organization. And the third is so this category information. So if you look at an example, I took here again this integral ad science. And this is just again, so this mapping the so this is now data from the TrackerDB repository. So, and then you just get an impression how this looks like there. But it's just so a direct mapping that you see. It has, so the pattern here has this name, integral ad science. It has the category, information about the website, the reference to the organization, and then it has information about how to map the network requests. So there are the domains. Here this AdSafe protected and ASDS. And there's also filters. So this is one thing here. So the domains, the filters here, for someone who is familiar, these are these ad blocker filters. So we are reusing here the same structure. So here it's a bit redundant because here the domains would be already enough to classify the requests. But in principle, you can use the filters to be a bit more precise if needed. The second is, so here the organization is referenced as integral ad science. And for that, it also has this additional meta information that we saw before. So the website, we saw the privacy policy, the privacy contact, which is typically an email address. It's sometimes I don't have an email address. Then it's typically a form. And then so information about so the company description and then the country in which it's located in. So this is what we do there is we try to find, this is just a convention from us, to try to find to the top company. So that means if there's, for example, Ghostery would belong to Burda, so that means the company would be in that sense Burda. So you go to the top and you see in which country is the top. This is just a convention that we're using here. If I put this here together, so the information, this is just the same information again, but this is what would be enough to make a pull request to TrackerDB and add a new service. So that you provide the information for this pattern, so how to map the network requests, and then the meta information for the company. And here, this is one thing I realized only after I made the slides. So, but I think it's very instructive. So I hope I was successful in diverting your attention away from the actual company description. But if you now focus on the company description and the names, because it's integral ad science, and you look at the description, it says AdSafe Media. And the same if you look at domains, it's AdSafe Protected. And well, the second one, IAS, so I think this is integral ad science, but the first one, this AdSafe Protected, This is from this AdSafe Media, and this is also one part that you also will see, that companies change name over time. So that means there's also this evolution. And here I did now a bit research. So it used to be till 2012 that it was called AdSafe Media, and then they rebranded. So this is one thing. After this conference, I will update the description. But so when you do this kind of investigation, because here it was relatively easy, but sometimes it's a bit more involved, and it would be a bit of a pity to throw away that information. And so this is what we then do is, it's not shown here, but there's also an optional free text notes field. And with that, you can put in the information. So it's not structured information, but so with today's technology, this is something that I would expect is kind of machine processable nowadays. That means so eventually we also use that when companies get merged, etc. At some point, you could use the information to then reconstruct so the history of a company, how it was merged, rebranded, etc. So one thing here for this TrackerDB, when you want to use it, so in most cases you can do the matching simply on the domains. This works in some cases very well. So if you have TikTok Analytics, if I'm not mistaken, this is then just the domain analytics.tiktok.com. So often you have this one-to-one relationship. Sometimes it's not possible. So there are rare cases when you have so overlaps. So one example is Google Tag Manager, which is an overloaded domain. So it has, for one thing, it provides so the Google Tag Manager, which is used as a configuration tool on websites. This is one thing in our categorization we would classify it as utilities, because it's an essential part of the website. But at the same time, it also hosts Google Tags, which we see as advertising in our classification. And for that, there's also, this is where these filters come into play. So you can then also be more fine-grained. You can use then all the power of the filter lists of this format. A small drawback is then if you work with the data, you need to support that. That means you need the functionality of a full ad blocker engine. Depending on your project, this might be a bit difficult, but one thing that we also provide is an SDK. So this is a JavaScript-based SDK, and this is built on top of the open source Ghostery ad blocker engine. So this is a tool, so you can use it. So just that you give it URL, and it will resolve it for you. And this is also, it's a very important point for me. This is, so the question, can I use it myself? And the question is yes. So we also want to encourage that more people use it. When we open sourced it, so one of the reasons why we open sourced it was also we are a very small team in Ghostery, and it's very difficult to keep up with all these changes. And we also feel that it's something that is beneficial also to other projects, so it makes sense to work together on this. So for non-commercial projects, it's free to use. Includes also research. Just use it. For commercial project, I would recommend to reach out to us. So we provide currently 2 models. One is a licensing model, but the one thing that I would also would personally prefer is this what we refer to as a data partner model. And this data partner model, this is just it means that when you use it, we expect that you contribute back. So that is just a bit so take and give back. And for that, so one example that I want to show is also with a partner company that was using it right from the beginning. This is called verified data. And this is an example for a successful data partnership. So as I said, so 2023 in February, I think we open sourced it, and they were using it right from the beginning. And nowadays they're also top contributor, and it's also that their use case has a nice overlap with Ghostery. So Ghostery, as you remember, is a browser extension, but what they're doing is website auditing. and it's not exactly the same, but you also want to understand the network traffic. It runs server side, which is a bit of a difference, but it's good. And what's for them very important is they need to be very precise. So they want to get the classification right. And even more important than for Ghostery is that they have a very low false positive rate. So they don't want to misqualify requests. Because their tool, what it solves the problem is that you find privacy or compliance risks on a website, and then it keeps monitoring that. And this use case overlaps quite nicely with Ghostery because they really push the quality higher. Because so when we open sourced it was a bit falling behind, and this is why. So with this joint effort, we were able to update it a lot and integrate new trackers, and this is ongoing. And it's also the landscape is changing massively. So this example that I showed before, where a company gets rebranded, this is not uncommon. It's also in some cases it also can be really hard to find out, so the owner of a service, etc. So there is some investigation needed. Yeah, and as I said, so for auditing, please check them out. So they're doing quite nice work. And this already brings me to the end of this talk. So to recap a bit, TrackerDB is a tool that provides metadata for request classification. And our goal is to be really high quality. This is everything is human curated. So I think the question comes again, so do we use AI or something like that? We use it partly in the review process. It can help a bit with creating company description, but in general, it's something that you cannot use, in my opinion, to create these ones. So you have to do the research and getting the facts right before. But this is the goal, that it's high quality. And the other thing what we want to embrace more is this open collaboration model. So with this verified data that I showed, they were also helping a lot in shaping the discussions and driving the project further. So I would say Ghostery is always an important use case, of course, for it, but we want to make it flexible enough that it can also adapt it to different projects. And we also want to, as far as possible, also extend it in such a way. And it's also currently already used in different projects. Ghostery, the other is what I have not talked about, but it's also a project that we have. This is this Who Tracks Me project, where it also provides all the meta information and verified data already talked about. Just some numbers that you get at least some information about this coverage, what we currently have. So we have over 3,000 patterns, so over 3,000 services that it detects, over 2,500 organizations. These are mostly companies, not always. There can be also sometimes open source projects that fall under that. And it's almost 5,000 domains. This includes also subdomains that we are currently covering. And even with that, it's there's still a lot of gaps. So we encourage that you help us to fill also the missing bonds. Yeah, and that was it from my side. And thank you for your attention. And I'm open up to questions.
I have so many questions, but I'll stick to one. So do I understand correctly that you're collecting the third-party domains only, or like this is for
for this TrackerDB, this has nothing to do with when I said in the introduction that it's interesting to learn about third parties. I think this is just because when you visit a website, you're interested in who else gets the data, I would say. But in principle, TrackerDB, there's no distinction between first party and third party. You just have network requests, and they are mapped to the information what it is.
I see. So like domains like www.youtube.com would also be there.
Yeah, for okay, I get it. Yeah, so this is so the what we want to do is that it's generic enough, so it's more interesting to have something that is used on multiple websites. When you have, for example, a site like Guardian example. So this is something where I would say it does not make much sense to map it because the Guardian is only used on the Guardian. We could it's also difficult in this classification how to because it's a so this is something that we are not intending to cover. So so we have different types of categories that we cover, but I would say in that sense, your intuition, I would say it's right that these third parties are the goal to cover in this project. Yes.
Yeah. Thanks. Let's talk after the doc.
Hi, Philip. Thanks a lot for the talk. And I'd like to say that, well, I promised it a long time ago, but we will start contributing when we finally extend the filter step. It's just Alex is very strict about we get there. So we still didn't find good enough filter maintain. So anyways, the question, I have several questions because the Tracker DB, first of all, this is a great project. It's awesome. There are no alternatives to it. This is the only open project that classifies basically the third parties or different services. My question is, you showed on your slides filters for this ad safe protected thing, and there was a modifier which was like a third party modifier.
Yes, sir.
What's the purpose of having it there? Are these filters only used, supposed to be used to attribute the domain or the request URL, or are they also used for additional purposes? Because, well, for attribution, there's no point in having a 3P modifier.
Yeah, that's a good point. This is also a part of the point currently for this project. We are lagging a bit behind in documentation, and this I remember from people who reach out, want to contribute. That this is often a confusing part. So, what do the filters mean? Because in this example that I showed, they were redundant in that sense. Because so for Ghostery especially, we want to cover just do the categorization, and here the domains would have been enough. So I would say there are two purposes. One, I did not go into much detail, but there are these cases where the domain overlaps. So the mechanism that we have there is you can, for example, Google Tag Manager, you can have them two separate entries, and you can define an alias, and so they are then allowed to use the same domain. Otherwise, domains have to be different for each individual entry, and then you can use the filters to distinguish. So this is a real use case. The other use case is something that is currently, well, it evolved from this original Ghostery proprietary database, and there it used to be the blocking rules. And the blocking rules became now obsolete since we moved to the community rules, which were just covering more up to date. So this is a bit of a relic, but I still think that having these filters might be useful for specific use cases. But concretely in Ghostery, we are currently not using them. But this is what I mean, and this is for this modifier, for example, that you say you can then be more precise. This is this domain, and it's only for third-party requests, etc. You have then the full power.
It's just when I was thinking about Tracker, our usage patterns are a little bit different. So Ghostery is a browser extension. It works in the browser. It has this third-party, first-party context. And I was also always thinking about using it in a different context, in the context of a Edgar DNS, for instance. It doesn't know anything about like first-party or third-party context, or inside Edgar apps. And there the context is that the request is made by an app. So what's third-party there? Who knows? One very quick follow-up. My old problem with Who Tracks Me and with TrackerDB as well, how do you categorize google.com? How do you categorize google.com?
Yeah, for Google, at this I would now have to look it up, but there are a couple of entries for Google. So this is so you have different types of services, and yeah, the other thing is this is also something I have not covered here in this talk, but there's a lot of discussion around these categories, and this is always a gray area because especially the overlap between, let's take advertising site analytics. Because when you do advertising, you also often this is targeted, so you have site analytic aspect, and the other thing you want to measure, which is also site analytics, and vice versa, site analytics are often then used for, so it's a bit of a gray area. The best that we can do is, and this is what I said with this collaboration model, I would say if it's an open project and it's just in the end it's a bit sometimes in the pull request a bit of a back and forth, and then we land on it. One thing that I also have not covered is these categories, because they are closely linked to what we have in Ghostery. And this is one thing that we realized is because it's very difficult to change these. So they are currently, I would not say set in stone, but it's not that we want to add more. And at the same time, it's also, they have to fit the Ghostery use case. This is one thing that, so a proposition which is currently not implemented would be to have an additional tagging system. Because it could be that you have different use cases, and if you have something, let's say that we had use cases like detecting anti-fraud tools, or and this is, it does not map to the categories, and this would be an idea that we have so additional optional tags. And for example, let's say Edgar, you would have then different categories, and you could then have maybe a namespace and put your tags in it. It would not, everyone can then ignore them, or who wants to use can use them. So this would be an idea that we can extend it.
Okay, thank you for the talk. I had two quick questions. First one is following up on the categories. I was wondering, how did you come up with the categories? First of all, like why this specific set? And there's also the question of like granularity, right? Like why this granularity in the categories?
Yeah, so this is one thing that evolved out of from the Ghostery extension, and there with the category, well, we always had discussions around that, because you, as I said, so you want to keep the set. At some point the set was larger, but it's also we want to, because this is then also we had then categories that then ended up having only one entry or so. This is one thing that we merged some of them together, but this is, as I said, so these so we have also a description of the categories, and I think it's reasonable so in the context of Ghostery, but this is one thing that I see if it has more adoption to other projects, the same that I just said. This is one thing that I could see, that there needs to be the option to have different types of categorization depending on the project.
Do you think that we can have categories based on the behavior patterns of these services instead of just like top-down behavior?
Yeah, so behavior. Do you mean that there's one thing, there's some discussion, for example, if I take site analytics as an example, you could say there are also different types of actors. There are some who are privacy preserving, some not so much. This is a topic I can completely see that it would be interesting. I could see something like that supported in this tag system. Speaking now for Ghostery, so far my view on it is that we should not do it, because it creates the following problem. Then I don't want to make the decision. Is this a good actor? Is this a bad actor? Because there's a lot of responsibility, and I would have to really understand them. And this is just, I would not be able to provide that. And this is so the reason why, so we have these categories, and they are, it can be that you have a site analytics one which is very good, and you have a site analytics one which is very bad, but it's not that we don't judge. This is also my main point.